Hi, and welcome to this edition of Upfront. I'm your host, Victoria Nestorowicz, and today we are here with the Mayor of Fort Macleod, Mr. Brent Feyter. Thank you for joining us today, Brent.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Shaw Television and Victoria, for this opportunity to speak with you about our town and about our role as mayor.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Did you grow up here in Fort Macleod?
Yes, I've grown up here all our life, or was raised in Fort Macleod, and have lived here all our life, besides a few jaunts here and there, but otherwise we've lived in Fort Macleod.
And what made you decide to run for town council?
Well, that's a good question. I was just looking on the pictures of our wall, and I see my dad's picture up there. My mom was quite involved in politics. Always been an interest of mine. I remember grade 6 doing a class election, so in many ways, it's been an interest, and as you get involved in business, you realize how significant governing is, and instead of complaining, I thought I would take some responsibility and put my name forward. So I ran in 2013 first as council, and in the last election as mayor.
Great. And were you surprised at all at the results of the election?
I think a person's always a bit surprised. I know in 2013 we were a bit surprised how well we did. It was a little bit of a rough term last, but we've really appreciated the experience. In 2017, we were very surprised. The election results were very close. So it's a really trying time in a sense, because you're putting yourself out in the public, and it's a vote of confidence. So it was a close election, but we appreciated that as well, the opportunity.
And what have you learned so far as mayor about municipal government?
Well, as councillor and mayor, I think there's so much to learn. Municipal level of government is so vital to our communities, and I think in many ways it's undervalued and unappreciated. It can be taken advantage of for sure. It doesn't have to require a lot of time and energy. It's being able to understand the function of government and the role of government. So lots to learn, building the team on council, making sure we can run together and work together and build a level of trust with each other. I think that's all vital to a well-run council for sure.
What do you hope to accomplish as mayor?
Well, it's always our goal to work together as a community to build a place where our community is celebrated, families are celebrated, our businesses in town are celebrated. There's so many things going on, and to help our staff do their job well is vital to ensure that our community knows they're valued and appreciated, and they can make this a great place to call home.
And what was your platform this term that you ran with as mayor?
Well, quite exactly that, to be a great place for families to raise their children. Families need to know that when they're in town raising their children, that it's a safe place, a place where they're comfortable letting their children play and get involved, and businesses as well, they need to be celebrated. That's where you're going to see growth come from, is when our businesses are successful. So I think all of that is part of our goal on council, is to do our best to facilitate growth and to not be roadblocks to people doing what they feel is their calling and purpose.
What do you feel that Fort Macleod is in need of?
Right now, quite simply, it's probably business and population growth, probably more specifically population growth. It's hard for a community to stay relevant or engaging if there is not a level of growth in the community. Otherwise, it's always looking like something out there is better. So for our community to say this is a great place to live, to raise your family, and then to see some growth, people will start to say, well, this is a happening place, and I think we're seeing it. We're seeing some good industrial growth, and we'd like to see a little bit more population growth in the end. So I think that's something that would really help our community.
What do you feel is great about Fort Macleod to live in?
The people, yeah. That's what makes a community. Community is all about the people, and the more as a community we can get along, respect each other, and encourage each other, that's what makes it fun. And I think we're seeing that, and we can only do better at that for sure. Yeah.
Can you take us through your day as mayor?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think it can be as little or as much as you want, right? So there are so many opportunities as mayor to get involved, engaged in different regional meetings, and it depends on the person's time. So for myself, on a day-to-day, there's not a lot of extra things throughout the day. Overall, it's being prepared for our meetings, engaging with citizens, taking phone calls where necessary. Big one today is emails, watching your emails, responding promptly, and meeting with staff on occasion just to see how things are going as a mayor, to get a vibe, and connecting the council with information they need and to be aware of what's going on. So a lot of it's communication, just being a channel of communication and making sure things are happening proper, for sure.
Can you tell us about any interesting events that you've attended thus far?
There's a lot of different events. I think the big one for our council always is the AUMA that's held every year. It's a great event to connect with other municipal leaders across Alberta. I have the privilege of going to Halifax for the FCM, which is a Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That's a great opportunity to connect with other municipalities across Canada, and those are always good. And then you always have meetings here and there where you're called with neighboring mayors. The Mayors and Rees of Alberta Southwest meets once a month. Those are always interesting to see how other communities are doing. So a lot of it's just being able to hear a lot of the other happenings in our area and staying on top of things so that our community can do better at what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
And what do you feel are some of the biggest issues that town council needs to address right now at Fort Macleod? There's always going to be issues. I think the big one that's coming before council in not too distant future is the cannabis and what that role is going to play in our community. So that discussion needs to happen. A lot of the other ones are a broader strategic plan is happening as we speak, and area structure plan is something we're working on as well. What does it look like when we are growing? Negotiating with different stakeholders around the area about highway bypass, for example. That's always a big thing. So it's seen in the future, like what does it look like if our town is bypassed? How are we developing with that in mind? And so a lot of different questions for sure, but I think the big one immediately would probably be the cannabis discussion. Do you feel that town council is doing a good job at being available to the public right now?
I would say so. Yeah, overall, everyone has access to our emails and our phone numbers. It's a small community, so everyone knows where you live. A lot of times it's comments made on the street about this or that that you can take back to administration or your other council members and say, how can we address this issue? So I believe council overall has been doing a great job reaching out to our community and listening and being able to be aware of what's going on.
Would you encourage someone to run for town council in the next election?
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of people, you talk, how do you do it? How do you do it? A lot of people think the mayor role is a full-time job. Council is a full-time job. It's not the case, especially for small towns, right? So there's a lot of great opportunities, and if someone has the time and the support to run, I definitely would encourage them. It's a great opportunity to learn and to build back into your community.
Great points. Well, thank you so much. Up next, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth with the mayor. So please continue to join us as we talk with Mayor Feyter from Fort Macleod. Welcome back to Up Front. We're still here with the Mayor of Fort Macleod, Mr. Brent Feyter. So we'll get right into it. Brent, can you tell us a little bit about the issues around a community that's a rural community being so close to Lethbridge? Is there anything that sparks that you think about that might be an issue? Good question. So rural communities, I think, have always been a challenge. Fort Macleod has been maintained at a level population growth for some time. And there's could be many different reasons for that. But as a small community, we recognize that we need to be viable. We need to be competing with what goes on in the city. And it's a challenge for small communities to do that. And I think we're doing that. And we're trying to be able to present ourselves as a great place for people to live. Cities are always a big draw because they always seem to have more lights and a lot more things happening. But fail to realize in a small town, there's a lot of things going on. Oftentimes in our communities, every week of the summer, oftentimes there's events going on all the time. So I think for us, it's being able to present ourselves as still a great place to live despite the attractions of moving to a city.
And you do have some great events. You have the Santa Claus Parade that goes on here, and you have a really good theater here as well. There's the South Country Fair that goes on in Fort Macleod, so there's definitely some good reasons to visit. Can you tell us about the standard of living in Fort Macleod? What do you think about it for the residents here?
It's funny, when I looked at the question, I was like, it's all relative. I would say we have a great standard of living. We have great services. Our health center is fully active and a great resource for our community. Between the seniors' homes that we have, there's a lot going on. And so the standard of living, the sports activities are very active as well, a lot of volunteer groups. So I would say we have a high standard of living for sure, and a lot of opportunities for our residents.
What are the demographics like here?
Well, it's vibrant. And I was thinking today too, on Main Street, we have a lot of new businesses that have started up, and they're all young entrepreneurs. And it's really good to see. We just had a mechanic shop start last week or a couple weeks ago. Another young entrepreneur took over a local mechanic shop and setting up business. So we see a lot of young entrepreneurs starting with their families, and it's so good to see that engagement from that demographic for sure. As well, we do live between two very populated reserves, and we very much respect our Indigenous neighbors. And that opportunity for us to continue facilitating that healing and discussion with our neighbors, I think, is critical. And Council's very much aware of that, and we're looking forward to doing our best on that level as well.
What type of things does Fort Macleod offer to its residents as far as community programming or sports, recreation?
Oh my, the list is long. The sports activities have always been pretty active. Baseball is active throughout the summer as well with some of their more professional leagues. Rugby is active, the schools stay active. So there's FCSS in our community is very, very vibrant. They're always very engaged in what's going on in the community. Hosting an amazing race is our family's participated in that a few times, and it's just a really cool thing to see families come out and run around our main street and look for clues and connect. So all those things are really add up, and we so appreciate the volunteers that we have that are working to help make new families and current families stay active in their community for sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about jobs and the economy in Fort Macleod?
Yes. So Fort Macleod has been quite vibrant in the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of the local businesses have been experiencing growth. So the amount of new jobs in Fort Macleod has been great. Between a truck maintenance shop for a trucking company and a new truck body shop and other maintenance shops, there's been a lot of interest in our community. Our main street's been very active with new shops and revitalization of some of the buildings, so that's been looking good. We just had a paving company move into Fort Macleod on some of our leased land. So we're looking forward to working with them. That's been a good thing for us. Fort Macleod's a gravel-based community, so it's an easy place to build on. we have a lot of land. That's something that's interesting and unique with Fort Macleod. The amount of land that we have is, for a town our size, is pretty amazing. So we're working on marketing that better and helping facilitate growth. So as much as possible, facilitating the growth of local business and making sure they're appreciated and valued. And then we're hoping that we can attract some outside business at some point too.
And do you have any initiatives in place for new jobs or for new industries to come into Fort Macleod?
Well, we don't have anything right now that's on paper that we can give you. I think we would like to say that we do our best to facilitate any discussion on businesses moving to town. The one that moved recently, they needed a quick turnaround on agreement, and we facilitated that within a very short amount of time. Other businesses are looking for land, so we've helped them carve out some land and look for opportunities that way. So I think our big advantage is just hearing the need and being able to work very actively and aggressively to fill that need. And we are working on some incentives. That's part of our strategic planning. So it's always a debate. What are incentives? I know that's a big discussion regionally and provincially and federally, like how much incentives can a community give? Our goal is to try to keep our mill rates as low as possible as well, and keep that to minimum to facilitate that growth as well. So.
And what do you think will keep people living in Fort Macleod and or working in Fort Macleod rather than going to centers like Lethbridge or Calgary?
Oh, I love the question. That's my heart's passion. I think it's a really good discussion. You see the cities and the way they grow, and the discussion always seems to be centered around the city. Everything needs to be in the cities for the cities. That's probably not always the case, but that's the way it can be made out to be. But regionalization of services to centers, I don't believe is the right way to go for a lot of services. And so for our community, it's being able to put our best foot forward. We're a great community. We love our town, and look forward to facilitating the growth. A lot of things happen in small towns, and a lot of big things can happen. Even big business can happen in small towns. So a lot of times small towns have the impression that they're not going anywhere, not doing anything, and I would like to say that we don't want to give that impression at all. So we're working hard for that, and I think we're making some inroads. So when big projects are coming, I think it would be only helpful if we could see more, and I call it the word respect or appreciation for our rural communities and what they contribute even to the larger centers. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to more of that discussion, and I think small towns have a small feel, but big things can happen. Mm-hmm. So if we can get our help people understand that you can make a huge impact in a small town probably a lot quicker than in the big cities. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that sums it up.
So we'll continue with our talk after this little break. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. Welcome back to Upfront. I'm here with Mayor Brent Feyter from Fort Macleod, and we're going to do some rapid fire questions for this third segment of the show. So let's start it off. Okay, Brent, tell us about your favorite food.
My go-to is the A&W Team Burger on a 7-grain bun.
Here in Fort Macleod, right?
Yeah, of course.
And what is your favorite song?
Right now, Priceless by King and Country, for King and Country.
It's not a John Wart Hannum song?
Not right now.
But soon, John. Yeah. How about your favorite movie?
Remember the Titans. It's truly an inspiration for me every time I think about it. It's a game changer. So, yeah, I love the movie.
Any movies been shot here in Fort Macleod?
To be honest, no.
No? There's a couple shows though, right? Yeah. Fargo was shot here.
Shot here. There's a few other movies that were shot here as well. So. Yeah.
Okay. And your favorite place to go on vacation, aside from Lethbridge, of course?
Oh, yeah, Lethbridge. That's my go-to place. Kimberley on the ski hill, I would say, as our family, it's a great place to be when you can ski out of your back door. Yeah, it's always been fun.
And what is one thing that you can't live without?
I'd say relationships. Yeah.
Your wife, right? Because you have quite a few children. So.
Yeah, wife and 6 children, so it keeps us pretty occupied, and it's amazing the relationships that are built. So it's a great.
What's your favorite time of year? Your favorite season?
Oh, I would say spring. New life. Just things are sprouting. Things are coming back to life. It's spring in Fort Macleod. It's a great time.
And what are 3 items that you would take with you on a desert island?
I can't take my wife.
Oh, well, items.
Items. Well, I was going to say if I couldn't take my wife, I would take an axe, a knife, and a shovel.
Spoken like a true Fort Macleoder.
Just get to work.
And what's your favorite holiday?
I didn't answer that one. I don't know. I think life is a holiday.
Yeah.
So overall, I think anytime you can spend time with family. I don't have one that I'd say, yeah, this is me. I think for us, it's just hanging out and enjoying life.
Do you have any favorite inspirational quotes?
Yeah, I had a couple. Don't look back, you're not going that way. Don't be looking in the rearview mirror. I think that's a lot of times our struggles in life. We're too busy looking back and not looking forward. But on the other hand, I like the quote too, remember Lot's wife. If you turn back, sometimes it can destroy you. So let's keep moving on. So I like that. So, yeah.
And why is Fort Macleod such a great place to live?
It's small, it's historic, it's got young families, vibrant business, great location. I often think about it, it's close to everywhere. Calgary's not far away, Lethbridge's not far away, the border's not far away, the mountains are really close as well. So we're at a crossroads, and there's a lot of good things right close by to us. So it's a good place to call home and be close to a lot of things that you still treasure. So, yeah.
Can you tell us about anything going on in Fort Macleod this summer?
Yeah, I was going to mention a few. June 16, we have our main street full of cars, hot rods. It's a street wheeler kind of for Fort Macleod. Usually there's between up to 100 vehicles, I believe. They close off all of Main Street. At the same time, the Chamber of Commerce is doing an antique and art show at our local arena. That'll be on the Friday and Saturday. So that's a very busy weekend along with the graduation. So June 16, you can mark it in your calendar. A great time to be in Fort Macleod. A lot of different foods and cars and antiques. So a little bit of everything on that day. And then, as always, we have our Canada Day at the fort, and that's a lot of fun. The Empress usually tries to keep busy with different activities with their drama camp. I believe they're holding again this year, so that's always a good opportunity for people to go. We have our South Country Fair coming up, a lot of different destinations, and always the river bottom. I think we forget about it a little bit too much. It's such a great place. It's quiet. Last year we did a number of Conquer the Flags in the river bottom, and I couldn't believe how dense the brush is. It was like a jungle in some areas. So I think we forget just to pull back out of our houses, enjoy the outdoors, and get involved in our community and get outside. There's lots to do.
Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, the Mayor of Fort Macleod, Mr. Brent Feyter. And I'm Victoria Nestorowicz. This is Up Front. Thank you for watching. Until next time.